Emily, I know you can hear this. I know you are sitting in that house right now, and I know you think you are safe, but you are not. You are never safe, and by the time you hear this, neither am I. That was the last voicemail left on the phone of Emily Ashworth. It was recorded at 11:47 p.m. on the 6th of November, 2022. The caller was a woman named Grace Whitfield. Grace was 41 years old. She lived alone in a terraced house on Havelock Street in Derby, England. She worked as a night receptionist at the Royal Derby Hospital. She had no children, no partner, no criminal record, no history of mental illness, and she had been dead for 9 hours before she made that call. Grace Whitfield was pronounced dead at 2:53 p.m. on the 6th of November. Cause of death: cardiac arrest, secondary to an undiagnosed arrhythmia. She collapsed in the staff car park at the hospital during a shift change. 3 nurses saw her fall. A crash team was called within 90 seconds. They worked on her for 22 minutes. It was not enough. Grace Whitfield was declared dead at the scene, and her body was transported to the hospital mortuary on the lower ground floor of the same building where she had worked for 11 years. Her phone was placed into a clear plastic bag, along with her lanyard, her car keys, and a half-eaten pack of mints. The bag was sealed, signed, logged, and placed in a locked drawer in the administrative office of Ward 7. Nobody touched that phone again until the morning of the 9th of November. And when they did, they found the voicemail sent from Grace's number at 11:47 p.m., nearly 9 hours after her heart had stopped beating. By the end of this story, you will understand who Grace Whitfield really was. You will understand why that voicemail was not a glitch, not a delay, and not an error. And you will understand why, when it was played at her funeral, 4 people stood up and walked out of the church before it finished. But to understand any of that, you need to go back, not to the day Grace died, to the summer before. June 2022. Derby was in the middle of a heat wave, the kind that turns the whole city sluggish, where even the River Derwent seems to slow down. Grace Whitfield was not the sort of person you noticed. She was quiet, thin, always wore the same grey cardigan, even in the heat. She arrived at the hospital at 10 each night and left at 6 each morning, 5 days a week. She signed people in. She answered the phone. She directed lost visitors to the right ward. That was her world. But there was one thing nobody noticed. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, before her shift, Grace drove not to the hospital, but to a house on Curzon Street, about 1.5 miles away. A house belonging to a woman named Emily Ashworth. Emily was 36, married, 2 children. Husband named Thomas, who worked in logistics for a firm out near the A50. On the surface, they were ordinary: a semi-detached house, a small garden, a trampoline in the back, a Volvo on the drive. But if you had been standing outside that house on a Tuesday evening in July of 2022, you would have seen Grace's car pull up at exactly 6:15 p.m. You would have seen her sit in the driver's seat for a full 2 minutes, staring at the front door. You would have seen her get out slowly, walk to the door, and knock 3 times. And you would have seen the door open immediately, as though Emily had been standing right behind it, waiting. Grace would stay for exactly 45 minutes, never longer. She would leave at 7 p.m., drive to the hospital, and begin her shift. No one at the hospital knew about these visits. No one in Emily's life knew either. Not Thomas, not the children, not the neighbors. Here is what makes this important. Grace Whitfield and Emily Ashworth had never met before March of 2022. They were not childhood friends. They were not relatives. They did not go to the same school, the same church, the same gym. There was no record of them in each other's lives before that spring. And yet, by the time Grace died in November, she had visited Emily's house over 50 times. What were they doing in that house? What could 2 strangers talk about, twice a week, for 45 minutes, in total secrecy? That question sat unanswered for months, and it would have stayed unanswered if it were not for the voicemail. Grace's funeral was held on the 14th of November, 2022, at St. Peter's Church on St. Peter's Churchyard in the centre of Derby. It was a small service. Grace had no family left. Her mother had died in 2019, and she had been an only child. Around 30 people attended, mostly colleagues from the hospital, a few neighbours, a woman from the corner shop on Havelock Street, who said Grace always bought the same thing: a pint of milk and a copy of the Derby Telegraph, every single morning. The service was simple: hymns, readings, a short eulogy given by a charge nurse from Ward 7 named Oliver Marsh, who admitted he did not know Grace well, but said she was reliable, kind, and never once called in sick. And then, at the request stipulated in a handwritten note found in Grace's bedside drawer, her phone was connected to the church speakers. The note read, "Play the last voice recording on my phone at my funeral. Do not listen to it beforehand. This is my final wish." The vicar hesitated. Oliver Marsh hesitated. But they honored the request. The phone was unlocked. The voicemail was selected, and it played. "Emily, I know you can hear this. I know you are sitting in that house right now. And I know you think you are safe, but you are not. You are never safe. And by the time you hear this, neither am I." The room did not react at first. People shifted in their seats. Some looked at one another. The name Emily meant nothing to most of them. But then the voicemail continued. "You told me you would stop. You looked me in the eyes and you told me it was over. But I found the notebook, Emily. I found it under the bathroom floor. And I read every single page. I know what you did to him. I know what you did to that boy. And I know that Thomas does not know. But he will. Because this message is my insurance. And if something happens to me, if I do not show up one Tuesday, if I disappear, if I die, then everyone will hear this. Everyone." At this point, 4 people stood up from the pews near the back of the church. One of them was Emily Ashworth. She walked out without making a sound. The other 3, Thomas Ashworth, and 2 people who were later identified as Emily's parents, Margaret and William Hale, followed her. The vicar stopped the recording, but the damage was done. Within 48 hours, Derbyshire police opened an investigation, not into Grace's death. The post-mortem had confirmed natural causes, but into the contents of the voicemail, specifically the phrase, "I know what you did to him. I know what you did to that boy." Detectives visited on Curzon Street on the 16th of November. Thomas answered the door. He looked like he had not slept. He told officers that Emily had not spoken a single word since the funeral. She was sitting in the kitchen, staring at the wall. The children were at her parents' house. He said he did not know who Grace Whitfield was. He had never heard her name before the funeral invitation arrived in the post, addressed to Emily, not to him. He said Emily had gone pale when she opened it, that she sat down on the bottom step of the stairs and stayed there for 10 minutes, and that when he asked her what was wrong, she simply said, "I have to go." Thomas was cooperative. He gave police permission to search the house, and within 3 hours, they found exactly what Grace's voicemail described. A notebook. Under the bathroom floor, hidden beneath the vinyl, inside a sealed plastic bag, tucked between 2 floor joists. The notebook was 72 pages long. It was written entirely in Emily's handwriting, and it detailed, in calm, methodical, almost clinical language, a pattern of abuse carried out against a child named Henry over a period of approximately 14 months. Henry was Emily's nephew, her sister Charlotte's son. He was 7 years old. The notebook did not read like a confession. It read like a record. Dates, times, locations, what she had said to the boy, how she had ensured he would not tell anyone. There were no emotions in the writing, no guilt, no justification, just facts laid out like a ledger. Police arrested Emily Ashworth that evening. She did not resist. She did not speak. She was charged and she was remanded in custody. But this is not where the story ends. This is not even close to where the story ends. Because the question that no one had answered, the question that mattered more than anything else, was still hanging in the air like smoke. How did a dead woman leave a voicemail? Detectives pulled the phone records from Grace's mobile provider. The voicemail sent to Emily's phone was logged at 11:47 p.m. on the 6th of November 2022. Grace had been dead since 2:53 p.m. that afternoon. The phone had been sealed in a bag in a locked drawer since approximately 3:30 p.m. The mobile provider confirmed the message had originated from Grace's number. It was not a scheduled message. It was not a delayed send. It was not a VoIP spoof. The call connected live to Emily's voicemail at 11:47 p.m. and ran for 1 minute and 43 seconds. Police examined the sealed bag. The seal was intact. The signature on the log matched the admin nurse on duty that day. The drawer had a single key, held by the ward sister, who confirmed it had not been opened between the 3rd of November, when it was locked away, and the 9th, when the belongings were collected for release to the coroner. The phone's battery had been at 4% when it was sealed. By the 9th, it was dead. But the voicemail had been sent on the 6th at 11:47 p.m., while the phone sat in a sealed bag in a locked drawer in a dark office, with no one inside. There is no explanation for this. The police report filed in January 2023 states, and I am paraphrasing, that the origin of the voicemail could not be conclusively determined through technical means, and no evidence of third-party interference with the device was found. In other words, they had nothing. No answer, no theory, nothing. But there was one more thing. One thing that did not make it into the police report. One thing that only Oliver Marsh, the charge nurse who gave the eulogy, knew about. 3 weeks before she died, Grace had come to him during a quiet night shift. It was around 2 a.m. The ward was still. She had asked him, very calmly, a strange question. If you knew something terrible about someone, something that could destroy their life, but telling the truth would also destroy an innocent child's chance of ever moving past it, what would you do? Oliver said he told her it depended on the situation, that some things had to be reported, that there were procedures. Grace had nodded slowly. Then she said something that Oliver did not understand until much later. What if the only way to make sure the truth comes out is to make sure it comes out after you are gone? What if you are the only thing standing between the secret and the world, and the only way to remove yourself from that position is to no longer exist? Oliver told her she was scaring him. She smiled. She said she was fine, and she went back to the front desk. Oliver did not report that conversation. He did not tell anyone. He said he thought she was being philosophical, abstract. He did not think she was talking about herself. But after the funeral, after the voicemail, after the arrest, he went back over those words again and again, and he realized something that made his blood run cold. Grace Whitfield had an undiagnosed heart condition. She had never been tested. There was no reason to test her. She was 41, relatively healthy, no symptoms. But what if she knew? What if Grace had known, somehow, that her heart was failing? What if she had felt it? Those small, quiet moments when the rhythm stuttered, when her chest tightened for a second too long, when the world flickered at the edges. What if she had known she was running out of time and had planned accordingly? The voicemail, the note requesting it be played at the funeral, the months of visits to Emily's house, the notebook she somehow found, the insurance policy of a message that would surface only when she could no longer be silenced, threatened, or made to disappear. Grace Whitfield did not leave that voicemail from beyond the grave. She recorded it before she died. She used a scheduled call service, a third-party app that was not native to the phone and therefore did not appear in the standard phone logs. The app was later found buried in a utility folder on the device, unnoticed during the initial forensic sweep. It had been set to deliver the voicemail to Emily at 11:47 p.m., the exact time Grace's shift would have normally started, the time Emily would have known Grace was at work, the time Emily would have felt safe. Grace set the message to send on the date she died, not because she knew the exact date she would die, but because she had set it to send every single day, and then canceled it manually each morning when she woke up alive. Every morning, for weeks, Grace Whitfield woke up, picked up her phone, and cancelled a message that was designed to destroy Emily Ashworth's life. Every single morning, she chose to give Emily one more day, one more chance to stop, one more chance to turn herself in. And on the 6th of November, Grace did not wake up. She collapsed in a car park. Her heart stopped, and the message, cancelled, sent itself into the dark. Emily Ashworth was convicted in July 2023 at Derby Crown Court. She received a custodial sentence. Henry was placed in long-term therapeutic care. Charlotte, his mother, has not spoken publicly about the case. Thomas Ashworth filed for divorce before the trial began. He moved with the 2 children to his sister's house in Nottingham and has not returned to Derby. Oliver Marsh left the hospital 6 months after the funeral. He told a colleague he could not walk past the front desk without hearing Grace's voice. The house on Curzon Street was sold. The new owners reportedly found a second notebook under the floorboards in the spare bedroom. It has never been made public. Its contents have never been confirmed. St. Peter's Church still stands in the center of Derby. If you walk past it on a Tuesday evening, around 6:15, the light through the stained glass catches the pavement in a way that almost looks like someone is standing inside, watching. Grace Whitfield never reported what she knew. She never went to the police. She never told a soul, except Oliver. And even then, only in riddles. Maybe she was afraid. Maybe she was protecting Henry in the only way she knew how. Maybe she believed that Emily would stop, that the visits and the pressure and the silent weight of being watched would be enough. Or maybe Grace understood something most people do not. That some truths are too dangerous to carry while you are alive. That some truths need a messenger who cannot be reached, cannot be threatened, cannot be bargained with. A messenger who is already gone. The voicemail has never been released to the public. Only the people in that church heard it. But according to Oliver Marsh, there was one final line. A line that came after a long pause, right at the end of the recording. So quiet, it was almost missed. Grace's voice, barely a whisper. I am sorry I could not do this sooner, but I needed to be sure that you could not do to me what you did to him. What did Emily Ashworth do during those 45-minute visits? Did she sit across from Grace and Nye? Did she promise again and again that it was over? Did she look into the eyes of the one person who knew her secret and see, reflected there, the full measure of what she was? Or did she see something else? A woman with a failing heart, growing weaker by the week, and think, I just have to wait? We will never know. Grace cannot tell us, and Emily has never spoken a single word about it. Not to the police, not to the court, not to anyone. But somewhere in Derby, in a locked evidence room, there is a phone. And on that phone, there is an app. And in that app, there are 112 cancelled messages. One for every morning Grace Whitfield woke up and chose mercy. So let me ask you this. If you had known the truth, if you had been the one sitting across from Emily in that house on Curzon Street, what would you have done? Would you have gone to the police? Would you have told Thomas? Would you have confronted her? Or would you have done what Grace did and built a bomb that could only go off after your heart stopped beating? Think about that tonight. When the house is quiet, when the phone is dark, when you are lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and your chest feels tight for just a second too long. Think about what messages are waiting to be sent, and think about who is choosing every single morning not to send them